Awesome. Very good. Well, we hope Jody Host feels better. So if we could do a call to order and a roll call of all the commissioners, please.
Sure. Director Kelly,
Present.
Dr. Arun Kumar,
Present.
Jill Baker,
Present.
Jeff Buford,
Present.
Claire Dragovich,
Here.
John Hanlon, I see. Oh, is that you, John?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
There.
Judge Hill,
Present.
Jody Hoos is absent. Chris Hughes.
Present.
Catherine, I missed you in alphabetical order. My apologies. Catherine, or Katie Drummond, as she's known.
Yes, thank you. I'm here.
Phil Kinsey,
Here.
Jeannie Ryhill.
Here.
Karen Tucker,
Here.
Harry Ward,
Present.
Deputy Director Woolery,
Here.
and then Amy Watroba also here. And then it looks like we have a few guests. I'm going to call the guests out that I see on the screen, and perhaps they can just identify themselves. First, I see Rupal Ware.
Timothy Rupel, Sarah Ware, Caton County Forensic Laboratory.
Thank you. I also see Sabra Jones.
Hi, good morning. Sabra Jones. I'm a regional toxicology liaison. Good morning.
And I see the last one I see is, I'm going to mess up this name, Maya Dukmasova.
Hello, yes, I'm a reporter, Maya Dukmasova.
Great. Thank you. Sorry, I messed up your name. Those are the only people I see. If there's anyone else present, if you want to identify yourselves for purposes of the record. And that's all I see.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else, Amy. So very good. We have a quorum, and if there are any amendments to the minutes from the meeting on September 16th, 2024. If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
This is Art Hill. I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second by Karen Tucker.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, the
Aye.
minutes are approved. Any nays on the minutes? Okay. Executive Director Watroba, if you want to give us your summary, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to share PowerPoint. Stand by for 1 second. Can everyone see the content?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have our agenda. The first thing I wanted to start with before I dive into my normal executive summary topics is I wanted to welcome our new commission member, Catherine Drummond, who has told me she goes by Katie, and give her an opportunity if she wants to introduce herself to the rest of the commission. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'll keep this short and sweet since it's the week before Christmas and I know we're all busy. I'm Katie Drummond. I am originally from Illinois, not the most southern, but a southern portion of it. Went to law school in Florida, was a prosecutor in Orlando for several years, moved to the Quad Cities where I was a partner in a firm and did predominantly defense work. And then in 2022, I moved down to Montgomery County to take over my father's practice. And that's my intro.
Great, welcome. So we're so happy to have you here.
Katie, where are you from in Southern Illinois?
Macoupin County, Gillespie, Benel, Litchfield area, about halfway in between Springfield and St. Louis off the interstate.
Oh, we don't even consider that Southern Illinois. I'm from St. Clair County, and
Okay, yeah, you're further. You're about an hour even further south from us. So yeah.
people in Alexander County consider me a northerner, so I don't know what they would consider you. Coupon County. So, well, but welcome though.
Thank you.
Also, I want to state for the record, it looks like Kevin McMahon has joined us. He's from the DuPage County Public Defender's Office. So welcome, Kevin.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Okay, so moving on. So on the topics of outreach, since our last meeting, these are the conferences or events that I've attended. I'm going to go through each of them just very briefly, with the exception of the one at the end. I just tossed it in because I was pleased to be invited to speak to some high school students that are part of a new forensic science program at Rolling Meadows High School. So that was kind of fun and interesting to get to reach out to high school students and talk to them about options for careers in forensic science. So that was just kind of fun. So the NHTSA Stakeholder Talk Summit was on September 24th in Springfield. That was a meeting of stakeholders to discuss issues related to toxicology and DUI. At that, and I've reported back to the Public Policy Subcommittee in more detail about this conference. But just to share with the full commission, I did share the commission's recommendation regarding Delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol that is available on the website with those stakeholders at the group, and it was very well received. Next, in October, there was the Illinois State Police Division of Forensic Services held an agency symposium. I'm very grateful for them, to them for including me and inviting me to the event and giving me 10 minutes to speak, where I was able to provide an introductory presentation about the commission, similar to what I presented earlier in the summer downstate, just again to get the word out there to the various stakeholders about the commission, the work that we do, the resources that how we can serve as a resource, and then where we may be going in the future. The most substantive conference that I went to was this was the second annual conference of the National Association of Forensic Science Boards. As you will recall, this is a new organization that started last year, whose sole goal is to basically provide collaborative opportunities and support for state level boards and commissions such as ours. Deputy Director Woolery attended last year. This year I went and Judge Hill also went. So after I kind of go through a little bit, I'll give him the opportunity if he wants to share any of his takeaways. It was a very, very full and dense conference. We covered a lot in 2 days. So this is just a list of the main agenda items. The ones in red are our agenda items or panels that I was invited to participate in. So I will be reporting back to the individual subcommittees on any substantive information from this conference that is relevant to their work. But I did want to at least give an overview to the full commission about what we covered. I thought it was very worthwhile. Like I said, it's certainly worthwhile for what I do as your one and only staff member for the commission. But I thought it was a really great program, and they are going to do another conference next year, probably again in November, the location to be determined. So real quick, on the topic of proposed boards, they talked a lot about the practical side of developing or maintaining a productive commission or board. There were individuals there from states that are thinking of creating boards, and there was a general consensus that the way that Illinois went about doing it, which is if you can, having a planning group or a task force before you have a board, is the best way to set up the commission or board for success. So I think that the states that are considering it are probably leaning in that direction. The topics of building up credibility and presence with stakeholders over time were discussed. A lot about how to educate different groups. And a big theme was the idea that, trust is hard earned when you're a new organization or commission, but easily lost. An overarching theme for the boards that are stakeholder boards versus scientific, more scientific boards, was the idea of leaving advocacy at the door and, everybody coming to the table with the idea that sound forensic science is good for everyone. So we're certainly, I think, a good model of how that plays out and works in practice. The next topic, which I participated in, was board responsibility training. I focused a lot on different trainings that we've done both for board members and then other groups, and got very positive responses from the audience, I would say, on the topics of the technology subcommittee, how it did its phase 1 and phase 2 study of current and emerging technologies and has made that information available to board members who may not have a background in those particular disciplines. They also were very excited about the training documents that we put out on the website for forensic scientists. Our Fundamentals of Forensic Science video project that is currently in process, which Karen will talk about later during the subcommittee report. And then our informational video. They loved our informational video, which is on our website. And I'm going to say that Texas, which, we all know is kind of like one of the longest standing and most robust commissions out there, afterwards reached out to me and said, quote, we need one of those. So Texas is now going to be doing a video similar to ours. So I thought that was really great and speaks highly of what we've done as a commission. Anytime Texas is mirroring us, or we came up with something before Texas did, that's a great thing. Because they're a very, active commission, and I think they have 6 staff members. So there were people from other states talking about where they're at. And again, every state is different, and this organization recognizes that. Massachusetts is, they're going to try to replicate some of what the Arizona Forensic Science Academy does. They're trying to get a YouTube channel to get some information out to people. And they are similar to this commission. They are comprised of people that have day jobs. They don't currently have any staff. So what they're looking for is more tools within, their agency as opposed to money. They don't really feel that they need money. They just need more tools. Arizona talked a lot about, obviously, their Forensic Science Academy, which is I think it's been around since 2011. They are sticking with their traditional academy. They're also looking to expand and partner with the National Forensic Science Academy on some projects, so we can look forward to that. They're considering developing a standardized curriculum, I assume as part of that partnership that would be available to states. So that's also something that we can stay tuned and keep an eye on. And then similar to us, they're expanding to consider more video or web-based options for fundamentals and for, CLE type of trainings, kind of updating, in a post-COVID world, and also to be able to reach out more easily to people throughout their state, especially Arizona is a pretty spread out state. Wisconsin has done a lot through their lab versus their board. Their lab does a crime lab symposium. They also have a physical evidence book, which is a reference manual. And they also are hoping to create videos for YouTube in the future. The next topic was academics and why they're important to have at the table. This was a little different than what I was expecting. It was the focus was a lot on former practitioners who are now in academia, and they provided some really interesting, I was expecting it to be more about academics who had never practiced in the lab. So they focused a lot on how people who used to work in the lab system, but now have moved into academia, could provide assistance for solving real world problems for crime labs. They also talked a lot about how they could help with monitoring the health of forensic scientists. They discussed the notion that backlogs are a symptom and sign of stress that could exist with forensic scientists, and also identified employee turnover as a sign of stress. And they kind of pushed the idea that practitioners in the field really need forensic science boards and commissions to help identify trends on a national level and look out for their needs outside of their normal structure within their lab systems. New boards, making it work and be successful. This was a panel of people from boards that have been around for varying amounts of times. Kind of some key takeaways where everybody agreed that it's important to have some type of dedicated staff to the board or commission. So that was, obviously we were again an example of that now that there's the executive director position here. The importance of taking on projects that are realistic given the board structure and resources. And then kind of before beginning any new project or task, always coming back to, is this within our scope? Is this part of what we're charged to do? And is forensic science on the forefront of whatever we're planning to do? The kind of sleeper surprise presentation was about dedicated legal advisors for crime labs. This one actually in the survey, the post-participant survey, got the most favorable response. And they covered a lot, so I'm not even going to go through all of this, but this was So there are apparently a lot of lab systems that have dedicated legal advisors that are kind of just assigned to the crime lab. They're housed in different agencies. Some are within the AG's office, and then they're just kind of assigned to the lab. Some are within their state's DOJ. The Texas Commission has its own legal advisors, so they advise the commission, but then the commission is kind of a liaison to the legislature on behalf of labs in general. So again, every model is different. They all act in different capacities. I've listed some of the things here. It really all depends on what the lab needs. But an overarching, I'd say, theme with them is that they may cover blind spots with scientists and the court system. A really cool example of that was brought up that is something we may want to think about in the future is one I think in Texas, they're working on some policy development, the idea of legislation that would provide loan forgiveness for forensic scientists who commit to working at a lab within the state for X number of years. So that was kind of interesting. A lot of people asked about that, and a lot of states seemed interested in that as maybe something that could help with retention and keeping analysts within the state lab system, whatever lab within the state. Again, every state's different. So even states that have multiple labs, they said, hey, we don't care if you maybe train with us and work with us for a few years, if you end up going to a different lab, as long as you're staying within the state. So everybody seemed very favorable with that idea. They have their own national association, but you do have to be a designated lab council to be part of it. So I am going to reach out to them. I spoke with them quite a bit. They may be able to provide us with some resources, even though we're not able to join their group in any official capacity. The crime laboratories talked about how they feel collaborative versus adversarial boards are essential. They talked about a lot of the different types of boards that are out there, and that board composition depends on what the goal of the board is. So for example, New York has their DNA, their separate DNA committee, which is made up of all scientists, versus their more advisory board, which is a diverse group of stakeholders. They pointed out areas where they thought boards might want to weigh in the future, which included salaries, issues of retention, mental health, and vicarious trauma. They identified the largest hindrance to commissions and boards is the timing of meetings and the logistics, which can be a problem, but there's no clear answer. So for example, I think we pointed out how we meet quarterly as a commission, but now we've recently set up a mechanism where we can have additional meetings if we need to, for example, to push out a recommendation prior to the, in the middle of the legislative session. AI was the closer. I'm going to report more extensively to the tech subcommittee on this. I will say it was the first AI presentation that kind of made some sense to me. There was someone from NASA, there was a professor from the University of New Haven, and then there was a statistics professor. A few key takeaways were that having people involved in the procurement process that have some understanding of AI will be the first line of defense to make sure that labs are getting any AI technology that is fit for purpose, and that may not just, as opposed to just sounding good, is something that could actually benefit the lab. And they all agreed that within the criminal justice system, there's no way that anything would ever go completely AI, autonomous systems, without human oversight, because that's just not possible in the criminal justice system. You're never going to be able to put a computer on the stand. And they kind of pose the general question of always asking, is the task that the AI you're looking at suited more to a human being, or is it for a machine, more repetitive labor? And pointing out that repetitive labor, those types of tasks are where AI will best serve labs and forensic service providers. They did point out that NIST has started the U.S. Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute Consortium, so we can start tracking them for ideas and best practices on AI. And that's, it was, again, a very dense presentation. NAFSB is going to continue to try to grow. They're going to try, one thing they're going to help do is try to help promote state boards and push out any, output or deliverables that state boards have. And then kind of focus on creating partnerships with different groups to try to expand membership to all stakeholders. There wasn't a lot of representation there, I would say, from law enforcement or prosecutors. There were a fair number of defense attorneys from the Innocence Network and legal aid, but that could have just been because it was in New York and so they were local. And with that, Judge Hill, I know I kind of crammed a bunch into that presentation. Did you have any thoughts you wanted to share?
Sure, absolutely, Amy. Thank you very much. And you crammed in a lot because there was a lot that transpired during that conference. I found it very worthwhile. I was glad that I actually attended. Amy covered a number of things that were part of the presentations. There were a number of sort of topics or issues that really resonated with me. I'll just share a couple of them really quickly. Certainly talking about the AI presentation, one thing that was stressed, if you will, about looking at AI and what our reliance might be on it. The question is not ever whether or not the model works. The question is, when does it not work? And we've got to figure out what the limits are for AI. And that is something that I kind of took away from that presentation. Amy already talked about looking at the health, the care and feeding of forensic scientists who work in our crime labs. And that was a critical topic for me. Talking about the fact that if you see backlogs, well, that's a symptom of not just, hey, the work's not getting done, but hardworking forensic scientists are maybe just being overloaded. And so you got to be sure that you manage the workflow, the work assignments, those kinds of things. The loan forgiveness idea was, I thought, a great one. And I thought a lot of people can get behind that for forensic scientists who work in public service for a certain period of years to get their student loans forgiven. That's another incentive to keep good people in our midst and doing that good and hard work. One of the more, I'll close with this one. One of the more interesting conversations and presentations that I was a part of, being one of the few non-scientists in the audience, was talking about the rub between forensic scientists who work in a crime lab, but then they have to go to court, criminal court, to testify. And there's sort of a rub there because, of course, forensic scientists, you're looking for the truth. You're trying to get to the truth. But then the courtroom process is, yeah, hopefully we get to the truth, but the process to get there may not be so linear. And the example that was talked about was a forensic scientist is on the witness stand and the defense attorney is cross-examining that forensic scientist with an eye towards all the defense attorney, have to do is create just reasonable doubt in one juror, and my client is not going to be convicted. So they go after the forensic scientist very aggressively. After the trial's over, that defense attorney might go up to that forensic scientist and say, hey, you were really good on the witness stand. You were solid, good job, or whatever. And it's like, what? There's a little whiplash there. Like, you were just treating me like a dog earlier, but now you're trying to be buddy-buddy. So that's something that I think that we have to be sure that our forensic scientists in their training understand. So there's not so much of an aggressive whiplash. Met a lot of really interesting people. Watched our executive director work her tail off, contacting people, talking about our commission, making contacts, So it was Miss Watroba is a force to behold. Anyway, those are my takeaways, and I'll turn it back over to Amy.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. Judge Hill also worked his tail off making connections, and we kind of, I think, did a good job of tag teaming and assisting each other, especially in particular conversations. Does anyone have any questions about the conference that they want to ask me or Judge Hill?
Any questions from anyone? Well, a lot of material, a lot for us to digest, and I think, some encouraging things there about how our commission is, I think, tackling this right, just sort of the organizational process and the evolution of what a commission should be doing, and then just a lot to think about in terms of, the topics that we have to continue to weigh in on. But if there's no further questions, I think then we're ready for committee reports.
Oh, nope, there's still a little bit more. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Geez. All right. Wow.
Yep. Sorry. They did say once again, we are one of the most active commissions in the country right now. So at least from having meetings and putting stuff out right now. So that was great to hear. So I also attended their annual executive meeting, which was just their business meeting. I am on their membership committee. So that's how I'm continuing to get involved with that group. And then I will plan to attend hopefully their 2025 conference. Quick legal update. I sent you guys just the memo. The cases of Redmond and Molina finally came out. Those are the two cases dealing with the smell of burnt and raw cannabis during traffic stops. So those are provided to you. Just a quick summary: burnt cannabis alone, not enough for a warrantless search of a vehicle. However, the smell of raw cannabis alone is enough for a warrantless search of a vehicle. So I know that these were Fourth Amendment cases, but I know it trickles down to the drug chemistry sections as far as, when they get submissions, just so that they're aware, what to be looking for, so that they don't, possibly test some items that might end up getting thrown out or dismissed based on these new decisions. Also, real quick, just a reminder that the first recommendation that came out of the commission about victims' DNA goes into effect. Did make its way into legislation. That legislation takes effect on January 1 of 2025. So well done. That was all before I got here. But your first recommendation did make its way into legislation. So that's great. Some quick administrative updates. Again, the video is up on the web. I wanted to talk, first of all, thank everybody for completing their annual training requirements with the ethics video and the harassment discrimination prevention training. I did want to give you the heads up that for 2025, there will be more videos or more training modules that are required. There'll be a total of 5. The new ones are diversity, equity, and inclusion training, LGBTQIA+ equity and inclusion training, and security awareness training. I also want to give you the heads up that there is a possibility, it's unclear, we're trying to figure it out between legal and the governor's office, that those training modules may also be required for 2024. A few months ago, we were having these discussions and we didn't think that they were, but now there's been some communication suggesting possibly they will be. So if you get an email from me in the next couple of weeks, I apologize in advance. There may be some additional modules that you have to go in and do. So don't shoot the messenger, but I wanted to give you the heads up. We're trying to figure out if these have to be done this year as well. But for sure, they will be part of your core annual trainings starting in 2025. And then, just so you're aware too, a lot of what I've been doing this quarter is the administrative kind of management transition, I'll call it, now that my office exists, trying to bring more of the things such as monitoring your training, onboarding our new commission member, Ms. Drummond, things like that, into the executive director's office. And I'm putting together a procedures manual for how to do all those things. That also will probably result in, I'm thinking, kind of like a resource guide for commission members so that you kind of have it all in one place. because, you know, these things were kind of happening in different places in ISP. And to the extent I can, I'm trying to centralize them. So that involved things like I said, training, onboarding new members, responding to FOIA requests. We did have, the commission had its first FOIA request, I think, ever, and that was this year. So we figured out how to work with ISP to respond to that. And then also your commission terms, the people who were first appointed to the commission, the first person's term expires next December of 2025. So I will be working on figuring out what the procedure and timeline will be for those positions, as far as if you have to reapply, when you have to do that, how you do it. So these are the types of things kind of behind the scenes, just so you know, I'm working on, and hopefully I'm going to make them easier for you in the process when I'm done. And also on the topic of subcommittees, obviously Ms. Drummond, if you'd like to join any of our subcommittees, you'll hear reports from them shortly. Just reach out to me. And if anyone who's on any subcommittees wants to change subcommittees or join additional ones, you can do that at any time. Just reach out to me. It is the beginning of a calendar year. So, and most subcommittees are kind of finishing up projects / starting new projects. So if you think you might want to make a switch or join an additional one, now is an especially opportune time. So I just wanted to put that out there. And that was it for my very long executive director summary. So now we can move into subcommittee reports.
Oh, very good. Thank you. That's awesome information. So with that, let's move to Quality Systems Subcommittee.
Hi, good morning, everyone. We have nothing to report for the last quarter. However, we will be meeting in January to collate and review any significant nonconformities from 2024 from the publicly funded 17025 crime labs in Illinois.
All righty. Remind me, Amy, I mean, these are just reports. We don't have to take action on these reports, right? So there's no motions or anything.
Correct. This is the annual report that they will do. And then the only thing is if the quality, I think you guys were talking about possibly an accreditation document in the future, if there's something that came out of a subcommittee that they wanted to post or anything like that, that would be an action item.
Got it. Got it. All right. Very good. All right. Moving on to the Training and Career Development Committee.
Okay, so this committee has been still working on the videos. So the first video was the informational video that is up on our website now. The second video that we've started to work on is the training videos for the core forensic science disciplines. So we want to have foundational information regarding our core disciplines that serve as an introduction to each of those disciplines and can be used as building blocks for future advanced training programs, whether they be in person, virtual, or hybrid. The subcommittee decided to first create videos for drug chemistry and latent prints. Some of the reasonings behind this is that ISP, DuPage, and NERCL all provide those services to their agencies. So all labs could contribute to these videos. We also were thinking that both of these disciplines are pretty straightforward in nature compared to some of the other disciplines from a content perspective. Right now, we have decided that we can start with the building block of the, we're going to attempt to start with the building block of the ISP training materials for these disciplines. ISP has some PowerPoint slides with voiceovers that we were thinking could be used as a starting point. So we've made a request through ISP to allow them to allow us to share those with the subcommittees for this project. We are looking at, we're kind of breaking this up into content creation and video and technology considerations moving forward. So we have, for content creation, we have identified members of each of the drug chemistry and for latent print sections from each of the lab systems to work on the content. We discussed that we want this content to be able to be edited easily as the disciplines evolve and information changes. So we were thinking that we would still use some kind of PowerPoint with voiceover format as the main content because it's easier to update these slides. And then we talked about maybe bookending that content with more sophisticated videos to that those may be more permanent in nature, but that the technical stuff could be edited. Director of NERCL suggested or offered for any B-roll footage to be able to be shot at his laboratory if needed. And we talked about what we want to convey. So we were just saying that we want fundamental information to all possible audiences, the public, students, lawyers, etc., while being mindful that we don't want it to be too long where viewer engagement is adversely affected. We talked about the group that's creating the content, and then as well, Executive Director Wetruba and I have started to explore technical options. Executive Director Wetruba reached out to members over at U of I to talk about using the U of I Center for Innovation and Learning as a resource. Unfortunately, they only create videos for their own classes taught at U of I. They did give us a list of vendors. So we have the vendors from the U of I, and if this project goes beyond the technology capabilities of ISP in-house, then maybe we'd be able to use the vendor that helped out with the ISP 100th anniversary video was a possibility thrown out there. Ms. Wetruba is staying in contact with her contact over at U of I for any kind of continuing dialogue on brainstorming with them or advanced training through the U of I law school. And then the other projects that are kind of in the pipeline for us is it's more ideas at this point because we're going to be focusing on these videos, but the idea of continuing education model on ethics for forensic scientists. We just don't want to take on too much in this subcommittee at one time. So we're going to focus on the videos and then move back into continuing education for scientists and ethics.
Can I ask, you mentioned the vendor for the 100th anniversary. Which vendor are you talking about there?
We still
don't
need
know.
to-
Sorry.
I'll tell you. So he's a professor at Illinois State University, and he just did that through a donation from the Heritage Foundation. So he's not really a vendor or a producer. He does documentaries, but he did that just sort of as a favor to the Illinois State Police Heritage Foundation at a reduced cost. So he's not a professional vendor so much. And honestly, he and I just put those videos together ourselves. So if U of I has, a vendor that they use that they have some, relationship with, that could then just therefore be seamless in the event that they want to use these videos as part of some, class instruction later on, I think the law school or whatever. I'd be curious to figure out who that is, but I think the 100-year anniversary avenue is probably a dead end for you. That's probably not an option at this point. But again, whatever ISP can do, because again, it's our obligation to provide administrative support to the commission. My one thought is perhaps CMS produces a lot of videos. They do that type of content, video content for the state of Illinois. That's an option. But if you were to get another vendor, you're probably talking about a bid. You'd have to follow the state's procurement process, and unless there's an IGA with an existing government entity that already has a contract with somebody, that's the other avenue. So if U of I has people that they already contract with as vendors, perhaps we can do an IGA with U of I to use their vendor. I'm just trying to think the different avenues there to explore that are not going to take forever in a day. But even if you wanted to use, his name is Brendan Leahy, who's at Illinois State University. I still think because this is a government agency, you guys would have to probably go through the procurement process to do that. I don't think there's a sole source exemption that exists at this point. Yeah, I guess Jim Chandler at our academy does all those things for us, for all the training videos we do for law enforcement and, forensic sciences, OneNet training that we already have. I'm just trying to think what's the easiest way for you to do this. It's not going to take a year to do a bidding process that'll be, subject to protests and all this other stuff. So.
Yeah, we definitely didn't want to do bidding. So we were thinking, that's why we got the list of vendors from the U of I, thinking that either through the existing IGA, that there might be a way to do that.
Yeah.
That I would reach out to PIO and the academy and see what capabilities might be. It might be that we don't need to go outside, depending on what our needs are for these first 2 videos at least. So, because again, everyone is in agreement that the most important thing is that we have the ability, and the videos are in a format that can be easily changed. So if, one word changes or there's a change in the range of source conclusions for latent prints, for example, that we don't have to scrap an entire product in order to make one technical change. So
Right.
I'm going to be working on that. The nice thing is we can be working on the content and looking at the tech options at the same time. So we're moving forward with both.
Got it. Okay. Very good.
All right, Karen, I didn't mean to step over you there. If there's anything else you want to say.
No, all good. Thank you.
All right. Anything else from training and career development? All right. Public Policy Subcommittee.
Good morning. So you all have received some materials from Amy relative to the work that we've been doing since the last meeting, and frankly, longer than that. When this commission began, one of the topics that we were asked to look at was the issue of the 2-hour window in the per se provision of the DUI cannabis section. We've done that over, the initial witnesses that we've heard from a lot of different people, as summarized in the memo that Amy sent. It's a draft, a quote unquote final draft of a memo of our position. I think that you all have that. And in the memo, the bottom line is, the question was, is there a scientific basis for supporting a change in the 2-hour sample collection timeframe of the statute? And I assume, hopefully, folks have had a chance to look at the draft memo as Amy distributed it. And the answer that we came to is no, that there is not a scientific basis. There may be other arguments. We recognize that, but the subcommittee unanimously concluded that there is no scientific basis for changing that 2-hour window. And Amy, I know you received some assistance in compiling this memo. So I'm going to turn it back to you and or your trustee assistants who worked on that with you.
Well, so this is the final draft of the statement that the Public Policy Commission is pushing up to the full agenda. Is going to be a discussion item on agenda item. I think it's agenda item 2. So if it's okay with you, John, I'll punt to then, and then since there's
That's
a possibility that the commission would take action on it today, and I'll be able to share it on the screen when we talk about it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course. That is what we have been doing, and so there's not much else to report on beyond that. So we'll come back to that item appropriately. Director?
Anything further? Did I lose you? Did you lose me?
I think technology subcommittee is next, Director.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did public policy have anything else? Is that it?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I don't
Nothing
think
else.
so.
Okay, good.
Nothing else from public policy, sir.
Got it. Okay, very good. All right, then technology.
Hey, great morning, everyone. The Technology Subcommittee has 3 active items in which I want to present. The first is that a summary report which summarize, I call it a post-phase 2 activities which related to emerging technologies that the core forensic disciplines have been assessing, is now made available. It'll be posted in our Teams channel. The Executive Director has that report. In that summary report, just briefly, it provides an update of different core disciplines that have continued on assessing or actively pursuing various technologies which will be employed in their operations or enhanced technologies in which they are continually assessing. Those core disciplines are firearms, latent print, toxicology, and trace chemistry. Again, that report will be posted in our Teams channel for review if anyone's interested. This will provide just activities of a long-standing assessment in our various core disciplines that participated in the phase 2 assessment for their respective disciplines. We met this past week on December 11th as a subcommittee, and there were 2 main topics that we discussed. The first discussion was really a topic that came up when the commission was first developed with a subcommittee, discussions regarding LIMS applications in our various laboratory systems. This particular topic was put on hold as we felt impressed to prioritize the emerging technologies first. Well, we've had an opportunity to have some baseline discussions regarding our LIMS systems. And because of the broad nature of LIMS applications in our respective operations, we deemed it to be best, as we reached an agreement, to develop a working group which can tackle this particular topic best, because then it will be able to allow the subject matter experts in LIMS at our various respective laboratories and the systems to assess LIMS-related topics specifically, especially those as related that are common interest topics or differences that can be assessed, and also applications for the user agencies that are using the laboratories' various services as it applies to LIMS. So as we will continue to discuss this as a subcommittee, we'll be deferring to a working group that will work with us to bring forth to our attention progress in these discussions. Our second topic we discussed at the meeting has already been brought up by Amy and others, is regarding AI applications as it relates to forensics applications in our disciplines and technologies that we currently employ. Because this was an introduction of this particular topic that we met as a subcommittee to discuss, one of the things we want to first establish is to ensure that we are properly characterizing AI in the practice of forensics applications, and to understand what clearly defines AI in our applications. As you all may know, this is a broad topic, so we will be treading lightly in this particular topic as far as not just glossing over. We have to have a strong discussion regarding this. So what we agreed to do, since Amy, our executive director, attended the NAFSB meeting and she has material that she will share with us, we're going to assess that information, use that as a resource, and then spearhead further discussions regarding this particular topic. One of the things we did establish, though, is currently in our practices that the human assessment aspect is still one of our baseline and one of our strongest assets with trained forensic scientists on the front end of decision-making regarding various aspects of data analysis, data acquisition, interpretations, report writing, and even testimony in court, versus machine-related, whether it's software, enhanced software, or even the marketing aspect of AI that we may come across with vendors. So we've taken all this into consideration, and this will be an ongoing discussion in our future meetings with the subcommittee. So that's what we have, that's what we've discussed, so that's our report from the Technology Subcommittee.
Any questions for the Technology Subcommittee? Any feedback from anyone? All right, very good. FIG, Forensic Investigative Genetic Genealogy Subcommittee.
Hello. So we met once between this meeting and the last quarterly meeting on November 4th. And our prior meetings, as you know, were the younger FIG, the younger subcommittee. So what we're kind of trying to do here is just get a handle on what's going on in the country with FIG from all the different aspects of it. And so our first couple experts, while they spoke about kind of the logistics of having a kind of in-house state forensics service lab for the state of Texas, our second one kind of focused on more of the administrative side of kind of putting together teams and securing funding. And this third most recent subcommittee meeting that we had, we decided to focus on the application of FIG with missing and unidentified human remains, particularly from the perspective of the nonprofit organization, the DNA Doe Project. We had a representative from them, Dr. Gwendolyn Knapp, come and speak with us, where she serves and has for several years as a case manager with the DNA Doe Project. So she was able to provide us some background information on DNA Doe Project and really how they assist law enforcement agencies and medical examiners and coroners' offices to help make those unidentified human remains leads that hopefully end in identifications. Beyond talking about kind of the application of the DNA Doe Project to cases, she was also able to provide us some reviews of national and state, specifically to Illinois, statistics on missing persons and unidentified human remains cases. We also asked her to highlight some of the hurdles for this, and for what they do is they're much more so on the genealogy side. So I think looking through they're the experts at working with the records to produce and fill out those family trees. And so she was able to kind of share with our subcommittee some of the hurdles that happen when you're trying to work with those historical records. One of the examples she cited that's well known throughout the country is the 1890 fires that destroyed records for the U.S. Census. So she kind of talked about how that can impact some of these developments of the family trees. We also asked her, and she shared some nice insight on what she thought was most important for agencies to know about FIG in order to have that baseline education to understand how it works and how to be prepared if you're going to look to applying a case for FIG. And that's something that our subcommittee is interested in trying to provide for our state at some point. So to hear from her, and we've asked this of every speaker we've had come in. So it's nice to kind of hear from the different perspectives of the people who do kind of they have different skill sets in FIG. And then for our next meeting, Jeannie and Amy are working to coordinate with someone from Indiana State Police's Forensic Science Division, and they're currently onboarding some of the FIG instrumentations. And so that will be nice to hear from them. So that's something we're looking to hopefully plan here soon. That's it for me.
Okay, any questions or feedback for any of the subcommittees? All right, well, let's move on to issues for discussion. So, Amy, I think the first thing we want to talk about is the revised commission bylaws and potential action that we want to take. We'll walk us through that.
And let me pull up that content. Okay, so I know we feel like every meeting we're amending the bylaws, but as we continue to grow, that's going to happen. So there are two proposed amendments to the bylaws. The first was just a very simple one, which was to update this, the address, the website address for the OMA training, because the one that was included in the old bylaws was no longer accurate. So the AG's office updated that. The other was to add a provision under executive director about the fact that the executive director is the spokesperson for the commission. Just so you know, this is already in the job description for the executive director, but given the fact that we're putting forward an increasing number of legislative recommendations, and I foresee in the future the possibility that, you know, we'll be possibly getting out there and asked to either provide testimony or make statements to legislatures, to the media, to different groups. I thought it was important to put it in the bylaws that, you know, basically all those should be funneled through the executive director's office. So that was pretty much the thought behind adding that to the bylaws. And those are the only two proposed changes to the existing bylaws. Does anyone have any questions or comments? If not, then for amending bylaws, we would need a motion.
So is there a motion to approve this suggested amendment from the commission?
This is Carrie. I'd be happy to make that motion.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
Second, Ponier Kumar.
All right, there's a second. So with that, since this is an amendment to the bylaws, we need to take a roll call vote on that, please.
Okay, so we'll start with Dr. Arun Kumar.
Approved.
Jill Baker.
Approve.
Jeff Buford.
I approve.
Claire Dragovich.
Approve.
Catherine Drummond.
Approve.
John Hanlon.
He's on here.
John, can you hear us?
I'm so sorry, I muted. Approved.
Okay. Judge Hill.
Approve.
Okay, Ms. Hughes is absent. Dr. Hughes.
Approve.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Phil Kinsey.
Approve.
Jeannie Ryhill.
Approved.
Karen Tucker.
Approve.
Carrie Ward.
Approve.
Okay, that's everybody. That passes.
All right, very good. Let's move on to the second issue for discussion. Statements regarding sample collection time and 625 SES, et cetera, et cetera. So again, Amy, you want to kind of walk us through this issue again?
So can everybody see? I've got a different slide for every page, but if it's not big enough, I can just pull the document up instead. And I did send this out, the draft, so you could review it beforehand. So as John was saying, one of the initial kind of tasks for the commission that flowed out of the DUI Cannabis Task Force was to take a look at research related to DUI cannabis. And specifically, the subcommittee has been looking a lot at the 2-hour collection window. And ultimately, after hearing a lot of evidence and doing a ton of research over about 18 months, they drafted this statement, this proposed statement to bring forth to the full commission with the intention, I think, of asking the commission to, to approve of the statement and then to put it out on the website, similar to the Delta 9 recommendation and the previous victims' DNA recommendation. So the way, just to give you some idea, or to highlight kind of the goals and why the statement was structured this way, is that it first provides some background. Because again, thinking about who might read this, it could be a legislature, it could be, you know, a different group, any number of stakeholder groups that are thinking of backing legislation or making recommendations one way or the other. So basically, provided a little background on the history of the DUI statute itself and how it related to, and how it changed after there were some changes to the law related to cannabis. And then it provides the current section, which is so the 2-hour collection window is only an issue in section A7 of the DUI statute, which is the per se provision. So it kind of provides a little explanation in layman's terms as to what, A7 is commonly referred to as the per se provision, and why. And then so that's kind of the background section. And then it kind of flows into the fact that, cannabis was legalized, essentially, the recreational use was legalized for use by adults. And in that same act, the DUI Cannabis Task Force was created to study issues of DUI cannabis. And then the task force, after hearing a lot of evidence and talking and discussing a number of issues, didn't decide on any legislative recommendations, but instead, turned it over to the commission, because the commission had just started to continue to look at the idea. And so the commission picked up where the task force left off. Here, the subcommittee wanted to provide some explanation of the type of kind of a summary of the types of evidence and things that they looked at, because it was not just limited to toxicologists and science. They really wanted a comprehensive kind of picture of the whole landscape about DUIs to fully understand, how the 2-hour window functions. So they heard from not just scientists, they heard from law enforcement, they heard from traffic safety resource prosecutors. They, looked at standards, studies, journals, secondary sources, laws in other states. So they kind of outlined that a little bit. And then they wanted to acknowledge, to kind of parse out that there are a number of non-scientific challenges for law enforcement related to the collection of biological samples in DUI cannabis cases. And they identified some of those that kind of came out during the course of their study of this issue. So they wanted to identify those, but then also make clear that this commission statement, or the proposed statement at this point, is not addressing those challenges. Rather, it's limited to the issue of science, whether a scientific basis exists to support a legislative change to the 2-hour collection window. And then that last paragraph is just in case you guys decide to adopt this statement today, that's where that would go. I wanted to give you an idea of how that would flow. So that's the background. The next page then goes right into the statement, which is very short and sweet, that the Illinois Forensic Science Commission has not identified a scientific basis for supporting change to the 2-hour collection time in the statute. And then there's a findings section, and that basically just talks about Delta-9. A simplified description of Delta-9 is that once smoker ingested, it enters and leaves the bloodstream because of distribution into other bodily tissues such as the brain. It talks a little bit about the metabolism. It then talks about Delta-9 concentrations in blood, and kind of when they typically peak, based on both smoking and oral administration. And then it talks about how, unlike alcohol, it distinguishes alcohol from cannabis, basically, because toxicologists cannot do back extrapolations for Delta-9 THC the way that they can for ethanol. And then it also discusses the best practices recommendation for toxicologists and guidelines for testimony, which lays out that they can't do back extrapolations. I will say, as you can see from the following pages, there are, I think, 23 endnotes. So to the extent possible, the committee worked really, really hard to provide not only scientific references to support everything in the document, but also, where possible, scientific references that are available to the public. And I'll show you that where that's possible, the websites are indicated in the endnotes. A lot of scientific journals are hidden behind paywalls, so they worked very hard to, the majority of the ones listed in here are not. There's also case law that talks about, for example, like the history of the DUI, or excuse me, of cannabis law in Illinois, as well as, prosecuting for impairment for cannabis under A4, as opposed to A7, which is what we're dealing with. Again, where those are available to the public, they've included those website addresses so that this can be easily navigated and accessed by any type of user. They also provided, never as a primary resource or citation, but where possible, they included some secondary sources, for example, secondary source publications. So for example, an article written by some toxicologists, including Sabra Jones, who's on this call, that's included in an ABA journal. So that way anyone could access some resources and get additional information about DUI cannabis in Illinois. It's very, very comprehensive. I'm going to open it up to anyone on the subcommittee who wants to make additional comments or insights or anything about this document. I want to thank everyone on this subcommittee for working so hard on this, especially Claire and Jill, who are the two scientists on the subcommittee, and also to people like Sabra, who came and not only presented, but also provided citations and resources as a toxicologist. So I'm going to open it up to anyone else who wants to talk.
Anyone else have any thoughts, feedback, comments about the statement? A lot of work has been put into it, and this bottom line, this is not the science that would support a change, to the 2-hour sample to something else. Anyone have any thoughts on it?
This is Art Hill. I just want to commend, I'm not a member of the subcommittee, but I want to commend everybody, including Amy and Jill and Claire, and everybody else, John, the folks who sort of worked to put this together. I think it's pretty powerful. This will be a public document, and talking about the way that folks who read it can actually follow up with the resources that were used. That were used to support the findings. I think it's an amazing document. So thank you.
Well, with that, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion to approve this statement?
Dragovich, motion to approve statement.
Is there a second?
Arun Kumar, second.
All right, a couple seconds there. I do think with something as, when you're substantively, the commission is making a statement, I do think that a roll call vote is probably appropriate. And I think, there may be individuals of the commission that feel differently, or there may be unanimity of opinion. I think the science is what it is. That's just my opinion, but everybody else may have different perspectives. So that being said, I think Executive Director, if you want to go ahead and take a roll call vote, I know that there's been a motion and a second, please.
Okay, Dr. Arun Kumar.
Approve.
Jill Baker.
Approve.
Jeffrey Buford.
Approve.
Claire Dragovich.
Approve.
Catherine Drummond.
Approve.
John Hanlon.
Unmuted and approved.
Judge Hill.
Approve.
Jody Hoos is absent. Chris Hughes.
Approve.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Phil Kinsey.
Approve.
Jeannie Ryhill.
Approved.
Karen Tucker.
Approve.
Harry Ward.
Approve.
Great. Thank you, everything. I did want to, and I don't think this would have to be done with a separate roll call vote, but I know we've done this in the past. I wanted to make the suggestion, and you guys can decide whether you want to do it by consensus or whatever, to give the subcommittee the authority to add or modify citations. Not obviously make substantive changes to the document, but I know we did that with the training documents. If that's something you want to consider in case they, either notice a typo or decide they want to provide an updated resource in the endnotes. Is that something that anyone would want to make a motion on?
This is Karen. I'll make that motion.
And Art Hill, second.
There's a motion and a second. I don't know that that's very substantive, it's just more of a matter of form. So I don't know that we need a roll call for that. But all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, that is approved.
Great.
Okay, with that, Amy, would you want to kind of walk us through the process that we've developed and potential next steps? As everyone knows, I've been the chair of the commission since the implementation of the commission that flowed from the task force, and I think I expressed several meetings ago that at some point there should be a new chair, but that does have to be approved by the governor. So I'm happy to fulfill the role until such time as a change ultimately is made. That having been said, I think kind of the broad contours of what we discussed was that a vice chair would be in a position to potentially become chair at some point and be recommended to the governor. But Amy, I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead and kind of lay out the process there.
So as you may recall from the last meeting, the statute doesn't lay out any type of process other than the governor designates the chairperson, but you as the commission are able to elect any other officers. So we did add to the bylaws at the last meeting or the meeting before, that a vice chair could be selected and that then the commission could push forth a recommendation to the governor's office that the vice chair be designated as the next chairperson. So based on what we discussed at the last meeting, we have 2 individuals who are willing to be considered for the position of vice chair, and that is Jeffrey Buford and Claire Dragovich. So the way that, and again, as we also discussed, the way we do this time may not be the way we do it next year. Ideally, I think it was Carrie's suggestion, in the future, we're going to plan to do this in the September meeting so that we're in person, so that it's a little more personal. Plus, it gives the governor's office more time to consider any recommendation. But I think my plan was to do everything in alphabetical order. So to first give Mr. Buford a chance to speak, and then Ms. Dragovich. And then this will require a roll call vote. So then I would just go alphabetically through a roll call vote, and you could each indicate whether or not you were voting for Jeff or Claire. And then we can go from there. Does that sound good? All I have to say, it's win-win for me because whoever's selected as the vice chair, they're both awesome.
We do Vice Chair 1 and Vice Chair 2 or something like that. Because both are great,
Yes.
And since both are interested, could we do 1 and 2? So 1 would be first and then 2 the following year or something like that.
I think we certainly within the bylaws, you can at this point, remind me, Amy, is it like the year terms? It's a year?
It does. Let me pull the bylaws. I don't think I think we kept it purposely kind of open in the bylaws, especially since we knew that we were doing this at the end of the year. Let me find it 1 second.
And also keep in mind, it is my intent, my hope that whoever becomes the vice chair, that sometime in the next year in 2025, that
I will use my offices to advance that person's name to the governor's office for being a chair, in which case you'll have to select another vice chair. So I'm sure who either of these individuals could be in a position to do that at that time also. So.
Yeah, so the way we amended the bylaws last time was just that the chairperson obviously shall serve until such time as a new chairperson is designated by the governor. With the consent of the chairperson, the commission members may designate a vice chairperson who may act in the chairperson's stead until such time as a new chairperson is designated by the governor. So we didn't lay out any specifics on how to do it. You know, I guess in theory we could say, okay, 2 vice chairs, but then you would still have to make a decision today about which vice chair is going to be the person whose name is pushed forward to the governor's office.
Well, you know, democracy is exciting, so I think we'll just have to, you know, grin and bear it. It'll be fine no matter what happens, in my humble opinion. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, that being said, I think Mr. Buford, if you want to just give us your elevator pitch, and then we'll have Claire. All right.
Thank you, Director Amy, and to our fellow commissioners. You know, first and foremost, I'm grateful for this consideration, knowing the talent that's represented within our commission. I'm humbled by even the consideration. The bottom line is I know we share common interests, common goals, and each of us adhere to core values and a focus to continue in the progress that we've been making while educating one another in our endeavors. And that's something I would expect us to continue as a staple and identity of our commission. You know, right now we're on par to ensure that we are effective and we're positively influential in our endeavors and what we're accomplishing. And we're also geared towards addressing the needs of the forensic communities in general and each of our stakeholders that are represented. With that being said, I am humbled and super happy to fulfill this role if so decided. And I appreciate the opportunity for the consideration and the time to address the commission. Thank you.
Very good. Claire?
Good morning, everyone. I'm very appreciative of the nomination for this position, and I too will be quite delighted if Jeff wins, because he's awesome. I've been very pleased with the steps that we've taken as a brand new commission. It's been challenging creating something from scratch. I was on the task force for the commission and now on the commission. But I see great promise in the work that we're doing. I think the collaboration that we have as a team, the ability to bring in subject matter experts and stakeholders who really are crucially important to our process has been fantastic. And so I would like to increase that ability for us to promote sound forensic science, and very importantly, to increase our communication and training opportunities, not only for our forensic science practitioners, but also for all our stakeholders in Illinois for whom we serve. Thank you.
Well, very good. And both people are outstanding members of the committee. So, you know, if you're having trouble voting, just, you know, flip a coin and it'll be a sound decision no matter what. So, Amy, if you just went ahead and go through the roll, and everyone could say who they're voting for this time. Okay.
Okay, I will do that. Dr. Arun Kumar.
You know, I was first. I had to ask my
Alphabetical, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Well, I like both of you. I've worked with both of you. I've worked a lot with Claire too. You're both phenomenal, and it's really hard for me to choose. I'm just going to go with what, you know, for me, it's 1 and 2 basically. So whoever is 2, I would support the following year. For my choices would be Jeff for the next for the vice chair, the next vice chair.
Okay, Jill Baker,
Claire Dragovich.
Jeff Buford,
Claire.
Jeff votes for Claire over himself. Very
Claire,
nice. Claire votes for herself. All right.
Catherine Drummond.
Unfortunately, I don't know either of you very well. This is my first meeting, really on the hot spot here, but I applaud Jeff's nomination of Claire, so I will go with Jeff.
Let's see, John Hanlon,
Dragovich.
Judge Hill,
Buford.
Jody Hoos is sick. Chris Hughes,
Claire.
Director Kelly.
Save me for last, please.
Save you for last? Okay.
Chair's privilege.
Phil Kinsey,
Claire, Jeff, you know I love you, man.
Jeannie Ryhill,
Claire.
Karen Tucker,
Claire Dragovich.
Harry Ward.
It's a no-lose situation, but I'm going to vote for Claire.
Okay, and I think that just leaves you, Director.
What's the vote total right now?
9 for Claire, 3 for Jeff.
Well, it won't be dispositive, but I always root for the home team, so I'm going to go with Jeff. But it sounds like we have a winner for vice chair, and that would be Claire Dragovich. So congratulations, Claire.
Thank you both so much for both. I would have loved to. Well, I'll continue to work with both of you. And Director, I will work with you and your office on how to push forth that recommendation.
Yep, very good.
Okay.
All right, let's see what else we got on the old schedule here. Okay, we're on to housekeeping items. Amy, you have anything for us? Training, sort of, ethics, whatever, anything else? Everybody all up caught up on what they're supposed to be doing?
Yep, I kind of front-ended everything in the executive director summary. So again, don't shoot the messenger if I tell you you have more one nets to do. I'll let you know.
It never ends.
It doesn't.
All right, no other housekeeping items, so we'll move to public comment. So I'm not sure if we have any members of the public still. Yeah, it looks like we do, but this is the time reserved for public comment. So any public comment from members of the public? Give it a second here.
Nothing from Kane County Forensic Laboratory.
All right. Anybody else?
I'm looking in the chat. I don't see any public comments in the chat.
Okay, well, very good. All right, then next meeting. So, Amy, I believe you had already promulgated schedule. I thought, maybe I'm misremembering, but I'm on so many damn committees, so who knows? But do we have a schedule for 2025 later?
We do, and those invites all went out via, so you should already have them in Outlook, but our next meeting is Wednesday, March 12th at 10 a.m. It will be in person at U of I. And so and then it will also be available via WebEx.
All right, very good. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn and for everyone to have a wonderful remaining holiday season and a happy new year.
Carrie Ward, motion to adjourn.
And
Bill Baker, second.
Yeah,
All in
or
favor?
third by Art Hill.
All in favor, say aye. All right, happy holidays, everyone.
Aye. Happy holidays.
To everyone. Have
Happy
a
holidays,
great
everyone.
year.
Great holiday. Take care.
Hey, Amy.